because you don't want somebody to download them and then say, oh, well, let's turn off this filter. And then, suddenly you have names of migrants in detention facilities who are appearing online. That's not what we want.
No.
Yeah, the world is more complicated now, but it's more interesting.
Yes.
So here's an interesting question. So you guys are, as you call yourselves, software engineers, but you're surrounded by, physically surrounded by, in this room, in your restroom. I had to go to the restroom, ladies and gentlemen. In this house with books that show a real connection to the humanities.
Oh, yes.
More than anything else. As a matter of fact, except for the genome book, I'm having a hard time finding a book that isn't like that.
Business and science is about, half of one of the bookshelves, but most of the bookshelves are humanities things. So we both have degrees. So we have degrees in computer science, undergraduate degrees in computer science. We both did second majors. So I have a degree in the study of women and gender, which I loved because it was navel gazing 101 when you're 18 years old, especially when you are one of the only women in your computer science class.
Right.
10%. I wrote a paper on this. 10% of my graduating class were women.
Oh my!
Seems high.
No, that was about the bottom. It never got that much lower than about 10%. But 10% is not very high.
That's what I mean.
But it was also great because you got to sample. I took classes in religious studies. I took classes in history. I took classes in sociology. I got to take classes all over the humanities and social sciences both, and they were great because I didn't have to specialize other than this one lens of thinking, which to me was always a lens of thinking outside the box. Because people who have looked at things, especially, so I was in college in the 90s, at that time, were trying to look at kind of traditional knowledge from a different perspective. And I think that as a training ground has really helped me think about things like business or technology or living life from a different perspective and being more thoughtful about that.
Sure.
Yeah. And then my background, my other major was in linguistics, and specifically historic linguistics. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time taking 1 or 2 semesters of different languages just kind of to see how they work. And so that's been very handy in this work, dealing with texts and textual scholarship, but issues of transcription and translation and transliteration. These are all things that we had to grapple with when you're dealing with cuneiform documents, for example. And having that background is even been helpful when we're dealing with 20th century American archival material.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. So You got into this because Ben, had a great-great-grandmother or great-grandmother who had these diaries. And that is a cultural record. It might be a tiny culture, if you want to think of it that way, but it represents the broader culture of that area. But is your sort of bifurcated or, let's say, conjoined interest in computing and the humanities, is this what sort of makes your business work? Is this why you think you are actually trapped in this world?
Lucky to be in.
Yes, lucky to be in this one. This is why we do it. Nobody goes from industry into archives and history for the money, right? And the idea that we're able to do this, combined with the autonomy of having our own business, of being able to work from anywhere, that's the draw, right? And being able to come into a community that is frankly underserved by technologists, right? There's software, it does its job, but there's not... we don't have a lot of peers who are having conversations about what people working with historic documents need, who are, have already developed all these tools and... Right,
the feedback we get on our software is, it's so beautiful, it works so well. And I'm like, really? It's okay. But by our standards, it's like, it could be, it's about 5 years behind the times, but it's not 10 or 15, right? It's not like a lot of other archive
app on your phone or something like that.
Right.
Right. But being able to engage with different pieces of history, with different kinds of documents. We've done a lot of work recently with financial records relating to slavery. Before that, we were doing work with a lot of colonial records in Nahuatl and geographic records of early Latin America. And being able to go from all those things, that's amazing. That's so much fun. And not just the documents, but the people, right? Working with the people.
We have the best customers and collaborators. They're like archivists and historians are nice. They have interesting material. They are enthusiastic about the projects they want to do.
And we learn so much from them, right? It's incredible. It's lots of fun.
We're so lucky. Because it gives us an excuse to go learn all these other things, which we're the type of people who like to go learn all these other things for fun. So
it's good to have that. You seem like you're happy.
I think we are.
But just a small little dip into the world that you showed us, and I'm here like, wow, they get to do so many interesting things. Because you can touch the entire world, not have to leave Austin, and still have a big effect on things. So it's not just making money, which you need to, because as I keep telling people have to eat.
We have 2 daughters. Like to go to college someday.
Exactly.
That's right. I'll tell you my story about vendors. I used to have my staff. They'd say, "Oh, those vendors, you can't trust vendors." And I said, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say one thing. Okay, how do you think we're going to do this work if nobody helps us? And who's going to do this for us for free? They have to eat. There's nothing bad about this. You just have to accept this. This is how we get things done, and this is how we achieve our goals. Otherwise, we can't. If you have a bad vendor, which has occurred occasionally, I have run into them, I just cut them off. That's fine.
Right.
So it's just like real life. They're actual real people. Sometimes I go to conferences and nobody will talk to the vendors afterwards because, they're just a little worried. We have one friend, she said, oh, you want to go to dinner with us? Oh, nobody wants to do that. I'm here like, I'm not going to buy anything from you. But, you're good to talk to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I like thinking a little humanistically sometimes. But just amazing the things you guys have done. So how many continents are you working on?
Gosh.
Wow.
Can't be more than 7.
No, it can't be more than 7. So definitely lots in North America.
Right.
We've done a couple projects in Australia.
Right. The National Archives, the UK is starting up.
The British Library did a project.
And the Slovakian National Gallery. So that's Europe.
Like Slovakian? Slovenian.
Slovakian.
I always get those messed up.
They are different.
Yeah, I know.
I've never been to Slovakia.
Right.
Yes.
So, decent amount in Europe, Victoria and Albert, like lots in the UK, right? But we do support other languages, but not in our
in our interface.
You can transcribe in other languages. You can't.
Right.
We haven't internationalized our interface yet.
There is a user, someone who's installed the software in Belgium, who is really, really interested in launching an African project. Again, colonial records from the Belgian Congo, and trying to decolonize those in a way. And the challenge that they have and that we have is that in order to reach those communities, you need to be able to reach them in French, right? An English language interface is insufficient. So really that's the next big step for the software, is to try to internationalize the interface so that it can handle Japanese, Spanish, right?
We have people
French.
interested in Japan.
Yes.
Do we have any projects in Japan yet?
Not live, because we don't have the interface.
Because we don't have an interface, right? Yes. And we do some collaborations with... where's Jimena? She's in
Argentina, yes.
And that's actually interesting, because those are projects that are collaborative between a Digital Humanities Center in Argentina and the Lila Spenson Library, so at the University of Texas at Austin. So they have a lot of colonial records. And so we did a project this past year where it was a, what do you call
Pelagios funded.
Yeah, but no. What do you call? What's the document?
It's a gazetteer, right?
Gazetteer,
Latin American gazetteer.
Yeah,
yes.
a list of all the places in different parts of Latin America, and it was an OCR correction project, and trying to correct that and then tag it and be able to export places and then map them. So that was a big complicated project, but it was neat because it had collaborators all over the world. There was somebody in Europe, two groups in Austin, one in Argentina. Yeah,
that was one where we got to use our the whole family business thing. Was we got our 14-year-old doing OCR correction, and so we now have a 14-year-old who knows probably more than any other 14-year-old about Latin American place names beginning AIA through AL.
Wow! All right,
she'll be at the booth at SAA on Monday if you would like to meet her.
Definitely.
So.
Wow. Well, that'll be interesting. I'll have a lot of questions for her.
It's actually fascinating to watch the kids because we don't push what we do from the business thing, but they both work on their cursive handwriting. Our 14-year-old will write in cursive because she's figured out it's faster, which
she's
is
taught
true.
herself.
Right. Yes, totally self-taught because they've learned. They had 2 weeks of it in third grade or something, and that was about it. And the third grader has started playing around with learning cursive.
That's cool.
Because they see it as something valuable.
Yes, definitely.
It is faster. But the thing that I like is, I was talking to Karen about this just the other day, is that when I was in kindergarten in a German school in Portugal, I had to learn how to handwrite, and so I had very, very careful handwriting, and it was very beautiful, and so that really affects everything in my life. As a matter of fact, I make art that's handwritten. It's not even calligraphy, it's just handwritten, but it's based on the fact that I have deep in my bones all of this. And so sometimes I use a European P because that's the P, an open P, because that's the cursive P that I learned, because it sort of says something about my past. All these things, the way we make marks, the way we save information says stuff about us and makes the world real again when it's not even there anymore. And that's what I like about these projects.
Well, I'm just curious, what's the day-to-day like for From the Page?
So for the software system or for our life, right? It kind of depends, right? Because the software system,
we let him talk about the software.
Yeah,
system. Talk about our life.
It really kind of depends on the project, because we will see when we wake up in the morning, we will look online and we will see one user who we guess must be in England, who has been working solidly on Indiana World War I's service cards for hours.
Wow!
And then more people in North America wake up and they start working on these projects, and we start seeing other projects come in. There's a slavery and race reconciliation project at Sewanee, where we'll see some people working on that. I'm
pretty sure those are students that they're working
right.
with.
It's part of it is it's during the day.
Workday.
Part of it, they're kind of slow, but it also depends. Well, I mean, to be fair, the material varies, right? There's a huge difference between transcribing a typewritten index cards in which you're just typing maybe a dozen fields, right? And worst case scenario, working on a medieval manuscript that's written in insular minuscule and is in Anglo-Saxon, lots of abbreviations, right? Yeah. There's huge difference, and there was one point in which both the Alabama World War I card and the Indiana World War I card projects were active, and we were seeing 150, almost 200 pages an hour being transcribed by volunteers on the site. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes the speedometer kind of gets pegged.
Wow.
Right.
But
so that's
kind of the software and what's happening with it. But our day-to-day life, it really varies. We try to come in and we get an email overnight that kind of shows us all the new things on the system and try to respond to that. If there's, customers who need an email that, looks like you're almost done. Do you need help uploading new stuff or things like that? New users coming in that aren't transcribing things. That's a problem we're trying to capture, is sometimes we'll have people sign up for an account and not actually get to a transcript, not actually transcribe anything. You're like, okay, what are we doing wrong? How do we fix the software to capture those people? New trials coming in or people, asking for information about From the Page. A like to have more of that, but always. So we kind of do that for the first maybe hour or two of the day. We still do a lot of contract work, software development in the digital humanities. So some days we'll concentrate on that for the day. Other days we'll concentrate on From the Page. We have From the Page Fridays, just when we choose to concentrate on From the Page. We do a lot of, so about once a month we send a marketing newsletter to our transcribers. We don't call it a marketing newsletter, but it's like, hey, here's the cool